vindictive creature as old as time, so old that it might seem that even death has simply forgotten about him, and whose one mission in life seems to be to wipe out these latecomers, these humans that dared intrude upon the lands of his and only his people. A creature as old as that seems near impossible to kill, and yet it seems that the Varu have devised a way, and we are about to enact that way and roll for it as we come up to the conclusion of this chapter in Kynan's story. So let's jump right in. Hello friends, Anderson here. Welcome back to Kill 10 Rats Plays Ironsworn Chapter 2, Episode 23, the last one in this story arc, in this Chapter 2 that was a bit of a detour on our journey, but now we are circling back around to our main mission statement, which is fulfilling our vows, and we have two vows to fulfill. One is to find Asha and keep her safe. We have found her. She's far from safe, but we might make it a lot safer for her if we succeed in our progress roll to end this particular scene challenge, getting Neda to Arsula and allowing her to take him with her on her final journey beyond the Shroud of Death. The other vow is to keep Red Crest safe, and in case you have been anticipating this moment as the resolution that brings Red Crest to safety, well, we also still have an angry tribe of Varu to contend with that are currently marching towards Red Crest as pretty much a direct consequence of the events that we've kicked up into motion, and they're quite intent on wiping it off the map. So unlike Asha, who is sort of closer to safe, Red Crest is very, very far from out of trouble. We have two vows on the go, and the challenge is to resolve them both in this one final episode. So without further umming and ahhing, let us first set the scene. Arsula's cavernous underground prison has vanished from sight in a glare of purplish ghost light almost entirely, the walls unrecognizable, and the only thing of true permanence in there is this dangling webwork of roots impaling the ancient elf and fixing him in place. And this is where Kynan, Neda and Saskia are about to arrive. Despite the assault, the onslaught of nightmarish shapes and creatures continuously trying to find a way through them, aided as they are with a spirit companion of their own, as Siora makes a sudden unexpected appearance in this place where several realities collide and the veil between worlds is thin, allowing her to step up next to Kynan again as they had been fighting in life. But the onslaught is gaining intensity with every second that they persist in their efforts to strike back at the whirlwind of horrors circulating around them, and every further second of delay also brings Asha one step closer to death. She is barely hanging on to life, nightmarish shapes bursting forth from the cut in her chest, from the blood pooling on the ground as it sizzles and wafts up in a purplish mist. This connection to the nightmare, to her father through the blood, channeling now this last effort of Arsula to expedite the ritual before it's too late, before death finally takes this never died firstborn. So we are at 3 countdown progress and 7 progress on our scene challenge track, our formidable scene challenge track. I don't want to risk any further rolls because one roll that is not a strong hit and Asha is toast. So we are going to resolve the scene challenge now. We are assuming that we have escorted Neda to a point where she can reach out to grasp Arsula. And that is what she does now. Let's see how it goes. A progress roll against 7 means anything 6 and below is our friend, and anything 7 and above is really not good news. Well, that is disappointing. I was sort of trusting on the dice to deliver us a double 10. We are, however, getting a matching set of 3s, which means we get a strong hit on this one with a positive spin on it somehow. We're being very, very consistent to the entirety of this arc in this scene challenge, considering this is, I think, the 3rd match in this scene challenge role combination alone. Let me just remind myself again what a match, or rather what a strong hit at the end of a scene challenge does. We achieve our goal unconditionally. Well, and then what? Is this another point in time where we could go for a major plot twist again? I feel like it might be. I have sort of called out this to be the last episode in this series, so if this ends up being 3 hours, guess I brought that on myself. So, major plot twist. 95. Unexpected powers or abilities are revealed. By the way, in case you're wondering why I'm using a negatively spun oracle here, because most of these results on here are a bit of a ta-da, favoring more like the opposition part of the story. You can pretty much put a positive spin on most of these, and the ones you can't, you can just flip around. That's just the kind of a loosey-goosey way I tend to use these oracles. I've also used a Mystic Frontlash oracle. Well, Mystic Backlash, but flipped into something positive. That's what I mean by that. Anyway, unexpected powers or abilities are revealed. Now, how is this going to benefit us? The lazy way out would be now that in the efforts of killing Arsula, or rather wrapping him into Neda's soul and carrying him to whatever afterlife there is before reincarnation for this kind of elf. Lazy would be to just make the side effect of this be some kind of healing aura that then makes Asha stop bleeding and such, but I think that's not how we're gonna play this. We are going to have a chance now to save Asha, but this unexpected power or ability might actually be something I've been wondering about for a while, and actually been sort of on the lookout for implementing, and I missed my chance with the solution to the Arsula problem, which is to find some kind of, well, for want of a better word, magic item for us, just to explore a bit of a more mystical side of things. And if I think about the scene we're in right now, it's such a monumental occasion, perhaps the remains of Arsula, some of the lingering remains of Arsula, could constitute such an unexpectedly powerful item that we can find. So I think that's how we're gonna spin this. I'm gonna use this to insert some kind of a mystical item into our campaign for future use. Future reference doesn't mean it's 100% positive, but it means that it's probably got some powers that we can explore, which just the positive of this being it gives us a very narratively ingrained angle to explore a bit of mysticism, and also to carry a bit of this story arc with Arsula into a future story arc. So we're gonna inject the genesis of a magic device into this scene as it unfolds, and unfold it does now. Among the shrieking turmoil of the whirlwind of nightmarish essences trying to bat away the protectors around Neda, the wizened, desiccated corpse-like Varu remains entirely calm, and that chanting that she's been doing only expands in volume, and it changes its note somewhat, catching Kynan, Saskia and Ciora off guard, who cease their own imitations of the chant until they've heard this new melody and can pick up on it again. And unfazed as she is, Neda approaches the hanging, suspended form of this dried out, tortured, near mummified elven comatose figure locked up in this eternal part grave, part prison. And she reaches up and the roots uncurl and reach down, wrapping themselves around Neda's upper arms and lifting her up to where Arsula is suspended, lifting her up to eye level as she continues chanting and then stops, giving this father of nightmares that has brought so much misery into the world a long last look, smiling as she sees her own duty about to be fulfilled, and reaches out and very gently takes the angular, high cheekbone, dried out, leathery skin into her hands and whispers some final words. And these words cause Arsula's eyes to fly open, mouth's jaw to drop wide, and the entirety of the root suspended cocoon comes into motion, the wood creaking, twisting, the iron starting to glow as if it was being heated up by a forge, and at the same time as this heat shoots through the iron woven into the roots, fire erupts from Arsula's eyes and mouth, and an unearthly screech fills the room as this purple light collapses in on itself, and almost like an inhalation of this nightmare essence goes up to the flame, now bursting forth from Arsula's head, the entire form now on fire. Neda is starting to burn, but she doesn't let him go, and this misty purple ghost light, half substantial, half insubstantial, just burns into nothingness in this cleansing flame, and the iron suspended in the roots starts coalescing around Arsula and running over him, this liquid iron now tearing skin away and just exposing bone as the form just writhes in this impalement of roots, everything burning. Kynan and Saskia averting their eyes, and Kynan almost giving up on watching the spectacle, remembering his vow, the most important thing to him, turns to Asha and rushes to her side as Saskia stands there captivated, watching Arsula's and Neda's last moments, and as the ashes of this conflagration drop down to in front of Saskia's feet and the flames eat their way up into the ceiling, the liquid molten iron still dropping down from this opening that had been made by this massive tangle of roots, the fire disappearing, smoke filling the air. Saskia notices in the midst of all those ashes the very unmarred, ivory-colored skull of Arsula, unmarred by the flame, that is, but in this sense still covered in the rapidly cooling layer of molten iron that now forms a new mask over the skull of this long, living, and now for the first time dead, ancient elf. So I think that's our magic item. We have the skull of Arsula covered in mystical iron that entrapped him oh so long, for over a human generation almost. And we'll see what it does. I think we assume that as Kynan is about to busy himself with saving Asha, Saskia can't resist it and just takes a piece of leather and nudges the skull into it and lifts it up and ties it now as it cools down without burning through the leather, fixes it to her belt and carries it along. And eventually we'll probably figure out what it does if we ever get into another situation where it becomes relevant. The dice will surely decide, but I think as far as conclusions go, this was quite satisfying, I have to say. But both metaphorically and factually speaking, we are not out of the woods yet. We are still in Ameshki, deep underground. We have a bunch of Varu marching on Red Crest, conflicting with one of our vows. We have Asha about to bleed out, conflicting with another one of our vows. So we should probably do something about that. And what I mean by that is we should probably roll to heal Asha to figure out whether we can stop the bleeding and get her to be safe in the spirit of our vow, in which case we can mark some progress, and otherwise it invalidates the vow because she's dead. So it is a wits roll, so we will roll this +2 and see how it goes. It is a weak hit, which means we are successful and can clear a wounded condition, which in this case is what I take this to mean. That is afflicting Asha, that is. But we must suffer either a supply or momentum loss. I think we can lose the supply. So we're down 1 supply, down to 1 supply. And we are up some progress on this vow to find Asha and keep her safe. And I think with Arsula out of the picture, we're also up some progress on ending the trouble in Red Crest, because we've at least partly ended it, maybe even fully ended it, because we don't really know how the ghost of Radka, not the ghost, the undead revived revenant form of Radka is now going to respond to the fact that the nightmare hold over half of the get of Radka is broken. Let's see, from a narrative standpoint, I think it's interesting to me whether Asha regains consciousness, because then we could theoretically try to compel her to use this precursor teleportation device to get us to Red Crest, which presumably then means we get to Red Crest before or at the same time as the Varu, and if we have to go on foot, whatever happens in Red Crest happens in Red Crest without us being able to play any part in it. So let's see if Asha is going to wake up after Kynan's treatment. I would call it 50-50. So 51 plus is she wakes up. 16, she doesn't wake up. Oh, God, is there anything else we can do to salvage this situation and outrun? Well, actually, Saskia would have witnessed her use it, but would she be... I mean, she's not really observant. We gave her 1 wits. I would say there is a small chance, again, so I think that was a 90 plus, or 91 plus, of her knowing how to operate the panels, these obsidian panels in this precursor translocation device. I don't think she knows how to do this. Well, it seems she disagrees. Oh, God. That actually causes almost more problems than it solves, because now Saskia knows how to use the translocator. Well, she knows how to use one of them. Who's to say that she knows how to use any others, or that they're all connected? I think probably technically speaking, I think they're all sort of connected, but you need to know the right input. So you need to sort of map the route in the star panel, obsidian panel on the wall. And Saskia has only seen Asha do the connection between Red Crest and the undergrowth of Ameshki. So she wouldn't know how to reach other places, because that would create a bit of a logistical narrative nightmare for me. Kind of weaseling my way out of this. I really didn't want her to know how to do this. Oh, God. But she knows how to do it. So as Kynan binds the wounds and stabilizes her, he looks up.
Doesn't look like she's about to come back around anytime soon. We need to get to Red Crest and warn Morgan the Varu are coming.
Well, fortunately for you, I know of a way to get there very fast.
What are you saying? You know how to operate this thing?
I know what she did. I can try to do the same.
And I think Kynan, being Kynan, takes that for, yep, that's what we're gonna do. Throws Asha over his shoulder, and with a final look back at this scene of now rapidly cooling ashes and smoke and the crumbled remains of Neda and Arsula, sets forth back down the tunnels. One thing I wonder is, does Kynan consider the implication now of coming back with Asha into Red Crest? Because if they do that, he's not exactly keeping her safe. He's just returning her to her captors and then has to either rely on Morgan somehow putting in a good word, which doubtful, at least that it's going to be successful, both the talking himself out and Morgan talking them out, or he's got to somehow not bring her back to Red Crest, which is something I've been thinking about now that things pan out this way. And I think we're going to do something reasonably ill-advised here. We're going to split the party. So what I mean by that is Kynan along the way, as they march back to the Star Chamber, will turn to Saskia and say,
I need to get back to Red Crest to warn them, but we can't bring her there.
I gathered as much. Figure if you hand her to me, I can bring her home to Mommy.
So as they walk, they formulate a plan that Kynan will be sent on his way by Saskia. And once that is done, Saskia will shoulder Asha and take that couple of days march on her own to get to Erin and deposit the now safe-kept daughter and fulfill the vow. Maybe she can even have a family reunion since she's carrying the skull of the father. These are not heroes, not by any stretch. I mean, honestly, Erin is kind of, and Asha too, they're kind of the baddies here alongside with Ursula, as much as from an objective standpoint, they're not all wrong. It's just, you know, the method and the means and the morals of it are kind of questionable. So still, it's a bit awkward. But it's a vow, so they have to fulfill it. That's, I think, something they can both agree on. Also, the progress that Saskia has here, because she also has that vow to find Asha and keep her safe. That's a vow she made alongside Kynan, so she can fulfill it. And thus, I think we separate the two, and we keep the focus sort of on Kynan for this, and have a bit of an epilogue scene where we roll the outcome of this vow fulfillment and figure out what Saskia got up to over there in Erin's little cave. So they're back in the Star Chamber, and Kynan is approaching that opaque pool of water. As he puts Asha down, Saskia approaches the panels, looks at them, tries to remember what exactly it was that Asha did there. And I think we should roll here because Saskia isn't really the most thoughtful or observant, and for me the question is, will she recall that whatever Asha did in terms of the motions, she will probably have to reverse them, because otherwise it's probably not going to work. And I think we'll just treat this as a phase danger roll with wits. God. Yeah. And if it doesn't succeed, then we'll have some mystic backlash, because I like that oracle and I don't use it enough. Let's see how it goes. Oh hell. This is just not normal. It's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 again. So 2, 2 and 2 plus 1, which is a strong hit with a match, which adds 1 momentum to Saskia, I would say, and also means that she does it properly. What does the match do, though? It needs to be something Saskia specific, I think. So we're kind of gonna tie that into the narrative of whatever she gets up to, either on the way or when she reaches Erin. Let's just run this by the action and theme oracles and see what they suggest for us. 64, acquire. 70, destiny, acquire destiny. What is she getting up to? I'm gonna make a note of that. Acquire destiny. And we'll circle back to that when we set up the sort of epilogue scene of Saskia fulfilling her vow to Erin. Somehow in the course of that she acquires her destiny. Maybe she acquires her background vow. That could be an interesting... Oh god, let's not have her swear a background vow to Erin. That doesn't make any sense. But it has to be related to that somehow. So we'll figure it out. But for now, we have Kynan dunking himself into the dark waters, feeling that tingling sensation, that electrifying sensation for a split second before he comes up again gasping, and he finds himself in that starlit chamber under Red Crest, loses no time and rushes for the door, which is likely barred. Actually, practically speaking. So let's say 26 plus the door is locked from the outside, but there's probably a guard on the other side. So we might have one of these conversations like, dum, 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 dum. I'm not a ghost, I swear. Let's see. 26 plus the door is blocked from the outside. Yep, and I guess the guard on the other side is probably Bevis. We just want to circle back to the very first time we intruded into Red Crest here. And now Kynan has to convince him that he's not the demon from the pit of hell come to invade Red Crest. Because naturally it makes no sense that there is somebody in that room. They've locked it back up again. Do we just assume that we're there ahead of the Varu, or do we roll... I think we roll, so I would like to know, are the Varu about to attack, or have they already begun attacking? I think those are our two options. Either they are probably already noticed by Red Crestian scouts as well, but are we in the midst of battle, already under siege somehow? Remember also the town is very weakened. It had lost a lot of people due to the nightmare plague, and they're not exactly coming back to life. So let's say it is... I'm gonna call this a 50-50. So if it's 51 plus, they are there, but they haven't attacked yet, and anything below, they have already begun besieging and attacking and probing the walls, and maybe they are occupying the lower city and the Red Crestians are holding the upper city. That makes a lot of sense as a complication. So 50 and below, the Varu are already holding the lower town, and 51 plus, they haven't attacked yet, but they're gathered on the forest edge. 54, that's an extremely close call, but they haven't attacked yet. So Kynan runs up to the door and starts banging on it from the inside.
Open up, I have news. The Varu are about to attack.
I call that a compel move, just because Bevis is probably going to be a bit taken aback by this. So we're using convince. So we use plus heart. We don't share a bond. That's a weak hit. We get them to do what we want, but they ask something in return. Envision what they want. Ask the oracle if unsure. What does Bevis want? Well, he recognizes Kynan's voice, I would say, probably having heard it at least a couple of times, and he is kind of a distinct sort of fellow. So I think I know what he wants. I actually can't remember what voice I gave him or if he ever even spoke. But instinctively, if I were to picture now what Bevis sounds like, he would sound a little like this.
Oh, I opened the door. But first you gotta apologize.
He did bean him over the head. So, how is this bad for Kynan? I mean, I think it's bad for Kynan because he doesn't really want to. Does it shake his spirit? That would be kind of silly. But I like silly. I'll deduct one spirit without a roll. It's just not even the act of the apology demand in and of itself, just this obstacle and having to deal with this trivial nonsense now and wanting to desperately clock this guy over the head when the door opens and trying to rise to the challenge. It just takes something out of... So as the door gets pulled open with a creak and Bevis's face floats into view holding his shaking sword, we get...
My apologies.
Apology accepted, no harm done. Mum always said, hit me over the head as much as you like, just don't hit my feet.
And on that cheerful note, Kynan rushes off to find Morgan. And this is where I actually wonder about the leadership of Red Crest, because of the way we also envisioned this disease to go. I wonder, were they at all affected by the... Because we haven't really seen them. We've seen the priestess, we've seen Morgan as sort of the captain of the guard, but we haven't really seen or had any sort of village head make an appearance. I think just implied that Morgan went to confer with them, but that might as well have been through like a closed door and quarantine. So what I'm wondering about, maybe also to make things a little bit easier narratively, is the village leadership actually still alive, or does Morgan maybe have a little bit more extensive decision-making powers now? That would help us, of course. So let's call it 50-50 that the ruling family of this village also got near wiped out by this creeping anger plague, this nightmare plague. What did I say? Let's just say 51 plus, they're all dead. 86, I'd call that pretty dead. So Morgan will be found, I guess, just for sake of ease of access, sort of on the village square near the iron pillar that we saw. The priestess also blessed some of the guards before they did their rounds. Priestess will be there, Morgan will be there, Baz will probably be there as also sort of a wise counseling person, even though he just recently joined, but I think his overall competence as this refugee leader is going to shine through. And now I wonder what the situation here is. Like, would they even want to fight? And if so, do they even have the means to fight? Because they have been quite depleted by this plague. It is not the most populous region to begin with. We're not in the Havens or anything. So let's again ask the Oracle, does Red Crest actually stand a realistic chance in their own self-assessment to mount a defense against the Varu that are showing themselves now on the forest edge at the other side of the river, where the scouts have already spotted them and it's very clear that their intentions are hostile? I think it's unlikely that Red Crest thinks they stand a chance now on top of all of that as well. So let's say 76 plus, they still think they can stand and fight, otherwise they'll probably somehow try and find a way to negotiate. 35, okay, so they don't think they can fight this. It makes sense. Now, Kynan will of course approach Morgan as there is a lull in the conversation, and a scout, having just delivered a report, rushes off to grab a bite and get warm. It's probably early evening, let's say. So Kynan draws up to Morgan.
It's done. The elf is dead.
I had a feeling, dear boy. Some of the ones that weren't as far gone as some of the others have recovered. They've come back to their senses.
Good. You'll need every man and woman. The Varu are about to strike.
We've seen them. Won't be long now. And we have nothing for them. You may have ended the plague, but it took too much out of us. Truth be told, there is talk of surrendering to them.
Not sure what you have to offer them. They want to see you dead and gone here.
Well, maybe the dead is optional and we can at least talk about the gone. And he pauses and looks at Baz and sighs heavily. I fear you picked a bad safe haven for your people to flee to. And Kynan turns away from them as they fall back into like a brief back and forth conversation and tries to figure out what his next steps should be. He does have this, well, I wouldn't say bond, but at least a budding connection with Efka that he probably recalls as a positive, maybe something he can leverage now, hoping that the goodwill isn't completely used up. He's not exactly the negotiator, but maybe that's what he's going to do, actually. He is a sneaky one, he's a bit of a loner. Maybe he's gonna try to pull something off here to try and reach some kind of accord with the Varu before they attack. Because I don't think he's gonna stand around uselessly and let Morgan run the show. That's just not really how he operates, and also kind of senses that Morgan has already almost made up his mind that they might be better advised to abandon Red Crest, at least momentarily, just being too weak to fight. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do a face danger roll with Shadow just to represent that Kynan sneaks out of the town because he knows several ways in and out now unobserved and tries to get to and around the Varu to somehow find Evka. Oh, a double 9 versus a 1. That means that's a negative match, so I guess that doesn't work. The question is, how far do we get? Do the Varu catch us? Do the Red Crestians not let us leave? Does something else happen? Let's not do another plot twist. Let's do action and theme. See what it yields. 52 serve. 33 peace. Serve peace. Actually sounds more like something good. Kynan gets caught. Something prevents Kynan from going out. Serve peace. I think I have something that could be interesting. I just need to think about whether that is going to drag things into a direction now that makes this even more complex and convoluted, but it might work better as a setup for the next chapter if I go with this idea, because I actually kind of like it, to introduce an element into this standoff between the Varu and the negotiation-willing Red Crestians that makes this a lot more complicated. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, but what I need for this is a name, an Ironlander name. So let me quickly go and grab one. For the purpose of this roll, I'm gonna decide that 51 plus means female. 35. Vigo. Not in person, but that really touches close to what I had in mind. I'm not gonna take Vigo, so I'm gonna roll again. 28 gives us the option of Kia or Sire. Okay, Sire. Now, before I beat around the bush even further, I think we're just gonna bring it back to the fiction, and that is something that happens the moment that Kynan withdraws into the shadows, trying to climb back over the point where the palisades meet the rock wall. But just as he's about to ascend, a cry rings out from the front gate. Riders! And Kynan sort of, what now? Climbs back down and rushes towards the gate. And he quickly scales that watchtower that he already scaled in the night that he effectively broke into the village. And he looks out over the edge of the palisades down at a group of a dozen riders, well-equipped, well-armed, well-armored, unusually well-equipped and well-armed and well-armored. Overall, a very scary force to encounter in these somewhat deprived Ironlands, and presumably well-funded, well-trained, and they look intimidating. They are lined up in a formation, in a almost like a cavalry charge wedge, positioned with a banner holder in front, riding proud at the tip, and on the banner is a stylized wheel, part shaped like a wheel with spokes, but also stylized to show off the compass-like stylized iconography of this Pathfinder religion. And even though Kynan has never really paid too close attention to current politics, he is aware of the description of this banner and knows that this is the banner of Vigo of Summersong. And as he tries to digest that information, he hears Morgan shout out from the other tower on the other side of the gate. I am afraid we have little hospitality to offer you and your men. You come to us at a bad time. And the rider holding the banner affixed to Lance, actually, calls out under a closed face helmet, also painted with this symbol.
We know of your troubles, and we bring good news. We come serving peace. In the name of Vigo of Summersong, we ask you open your gate and submit, and we shall lend aid. Should you refuse us, we shall leave. But expect us to come back.
And there is a murmur going out among the guards watching this scene as Morgan scoffs. We've heard about your peace, and we want no part of it. Archers, ready yourself. And Sire doesn't really grace this with any other response, just this, all right, if that's how you want to play it, we've seen this a million times before. Turns the horse and rides off again. And now the clock is ticking. The troops of Vigo are probably somewhere within a few days' march now. They will come back. They will want to take and submit Red Crest. And so the question is now, how do we play it from here? Because the Varu are there, they probably witnessed this exchange, they will probably be a bit confused. The question is now, are they going to attack? Let's make it interesting, call it 50-50, 51 plus, they attack. 45, they don't attack. Okay. Also, I think as a outcome of the face danger move, I'm gonna dock 1 momentum from Kynan just to reflect that now everything's kind of going a bit squirrely. And we have them get together, descending the tower. Again, Morgan, Baz, Kynan. That seals it, my boy. We will have to abandon this town. Take whoever's left and move. But where? And that's probably where this becomes both a price to pay and an opportunity for Kynan. Red Crest has at least a few warriors left, and Vigo is gobbling up a lot of territory. So what he's thinking is, sooner or later, they are going to make their way to Elder Watch, where his ties are, his connections to, well, his former ward, his sister's child. And I think that's why he's going to bring that up.
It sounds like Vigo wants to take the south and the center before he pushes west. What about Elder Watch? Take your people there. Secure it, fortify it, rally more settlements.
I think that warrants a compel move because Morgan knows Kynan well enough, and he also kind of smells that little bit of selfishness in there, even if the proposal makes some sense. So I think I'm gonna do a compel move with heart, but we're gonna take the +1 because we share a bond. Strong hit. So, +1 momentum. I see the reason in what you're saying, in more ways than one, Kynan. But you speak truthfully. If the Varu take our concession and give us free leave out of here, then leave we shall, for the north and west.
See to it that the villagers are packed once the night is done. I will speak to the Varu. I know one of them.
Morgan doesn't object, so Kynan doesn't even need to sneak out, and I think at that point we fast forward this a little bit to where Kynan just approaches the Varu lines as they are perched, watching over the town, trying to make sense of what this story now was between these two groups of humans and whether that means that reinforcements are coming. And since they sort of know him, they don't immediately pepper him with throwing spears and arrows, and they let him approach. He calls out,
Efka, a word.
And in that scene at the bank of the river on the far side, at the edge of the tree line with these glowing eyes making up a strange swarm of very intimidating fireflies in the lowering darkness, one figure peels out from the undergrowth.
I see you have survived, human.
I have. The elf is dead.
We are aware of this new development. It has not, however, pleased Radka. The ancestor has decided that it is time for your people to stop intruding on our lands once and for all.
I have a proposal and a warning.
And I think we need to make another compel move here, I feel, because the proposal that Kynan has is sort of, let my people go, give us the night to pack up and let us pass unmolested. We'll leave, but others will come. So, if we're really, really successful here, Kynan might even set it up in a way that, you know, even though it was a negative match, but I feel like we can roll with the narrative a little bit and be a bit sneaky since we have High Shadow. I think this is sort of towards Kynan's way of thinking, where he's like, yeah, we'll go, and then a few days from now others will come. How about you give them a little bit of a reception when they come? And, you know, have the whole Red Crest somehow trapped and surrounded by the Varu, or the Varu lie in wait for them. But I think that's the sales pitch. I'll tell you, you're not gonna gain much from only letting us leave, because there is a whole army of people potentially coming. Let me do a compel here again and see how FK reacts to this, because I think still that Radka doesn't talk all that much and doesn't consciously think all that much. It's more fixated on this idea, and the tribe will go along with the spirit of what Radka wants, but FK is able to shape the direction a little bit. So let's try and compel FK here, see how it goes. Ooh, okay, Kynan the negotiator actually strikes again. He does a good job. Gives us 1 momentum again as well.
I sense that you speak truthfully, human. Therefore I say, when the light of dawn touches the horizon, your people will leave and not come back. And as for any other intruders, we have our ways of dealing with them.
Then it's settled. You have my word.
Farewell, human. Let us never meet again.
And Kynan wanders off, and I think that is 2 more progress milestone on saving Red Crest from trouble, even though we basically end up effectively wiping out another village at the end of the vow. But still, at least this time the people survive, mostly. So I think we can go back to Morgan now and deliver the fulfillment of this vow. So that's where we will end the vow of saving Red Crest from the trouble. Let's do a progress roll. Anything that is a 7 or below is in our favor. That's a weak hit, which means that our vow is done, but there is more to be done, or we realize the truth of our quest. So more to be done in that sense, I take to mean that Morgan's reaction will be, consider your vow fulfilled, dear boy, but we could really use your sword on the way up north.
Then you shall have it.
So Kynan escorts the Red Crest refugees until they reach Elder Watch. That means our vow is fulfilled and we mark 2 experience. Woohoo! Okay. So we envision during the night, nobody in Red Crest gets much sleep. Everybody is piling everything into wagons on donkeys and horses and cows and driving all the animals together and packing everything up, whatever can be carried, fashioning some kind of carrying devices for the sickly and elderly, and just making room on wagons for the ones that just absolutely cannot walk or be carried behind horses. And I think that's where we leave Kynan for now, as his vow is fulfilled, as Red Crest is about to be deserted, as night is coming to an end. Morgan, Baz, Kynan gather, taking stock of this forming wagon train, and now they are the protectors, having to guide this group up to their new home, to even potentially their last stand, where those settlements that still remain free from Vigo's touch can band together. So yeah, that is chapter 2 for Kynan. We have concluded this Red Crest arc, except of course for the other vow. So I'm gonna roll just to see how the fulfillment of that vow goes, and then we'll see about the rest. That is a strong hit, and we also get Saskia to be now the to acquire her destiny in the process of this. On a strong hit, your quest is complete. Mark experience. So we mark experience for Kynan and we mark experience for Saskia again, or rather we mark experience for Kynan again and then we mark experience for Saskia in that order. But it's like the only destiny I can think of for Saskia that she finds in all of this, because she is a horribly vindictive person, and I think if she's looking for redemption, she's looking for redemption in her own way. She always twists things anyway. She's always the rebel against power, somewhat greedy, but trying to be better, a little bit like Kynan in that regard. So how would she finish this vow? She's carried Asha there now. Probably takes a couple of days lagging behind Kynan, who is very likely leaving her a message somewhere in Red Crest outlining where they've gone. But what does she do here? She's in that cave, she enters, she has Asha with her, who is probably not carrying her anymore. She's probably conscious, so guiding her in and not listening to her complaints the first couple of hours that she was awake, and since then they've just been marching in awkward silence for 2 days. And she barely pays attention to this reunion between mother and daughter as they embrace, and she's just standing somewhere there in the shadow of Erin's fire, watching Asha and Erin hug it out, but not really listening to anything they're saying, and she just feels that field of her view narrowing, her vow now fulfilled, but somehow there is nothing that sits right with her about the situation. This isn't how things are supposed to be. This meddling of firstborn, this meddling witch and her daughter, now they've effectively gotten away with it. But of course the vow is fulfilled, so technically there is not really anything, any obligation anymore, which to Saskia's mind is probably good enough. She has a very unique understanding of honor now. And as Asha lets go of her mother and begins to talk, she recoils in horror as Erin crumples with a spear stuck out of her throat, whips around, stares wide-eyed at Saskia, who in a very lazy, casual movement flicks a throwing dagger right into Asha's throat. She crumples, and Saskia kneels down, very brutally flips Erin over, grabs the bloodied tip of her iron spear, and says,
I swear that any of you witches, holy men, elves, and any other scum have no more power over these Ironlands.
So I think that's her destiny, that's her background vow, even though I guess that's kind of a very human-centric vow to take. She's not a good person. She is determined to go for redemption through keeping all the Ironlander settlements somehow protected against the meddlings of the supernatural entities that keep trying to mess with them. She's had enough. And that's where she sees a chance to apply herself and find some twisted version of honor again. And so as she reaches down into the pool of blood and smears 3 lines across her face in a new expression of her war pain, and tears the spear out, looking back at the 2 corpses, spits on the ground, and says, "Let's do some good." And that's where we leave it for this chapter. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in the retrospect look back on this chapter, sort of a wrap-up session I'm going to do next, and then we'll pick this up and explore what else happens. But for now, we're done. So Bye for now.